Good morning. My name is Sheila Dixon. I'm the Executive Director of the Northern Virginia Black Chamber of Commerce, and I would like to welcome everybody to today's call. We've had an exciting few weeks talking about technology's impact on minority businesses, and today we're going to talk about cloud, architecture, migration, and cybersecurity. So I just also wanted to introduce my co-host, Caprice Ayers, who is the CEO and President of JuneGem Technologies Incorporated.
Good morning, Sheila. Thank you. How's everyone doing today? Thank you again for joining us for another great series. I am Caprice Ayers, the CEO and President of JuneGem Technologies. We're an IT professional service firm here in Prince George's County, Maryland. We specialize in ERP consultation, cyber health consulting, and IT resourcing. So today, before we get started, as we do, we would like to take a few moments to have a few words from our sponsors, and then we will introduce our great panelists for today.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Paul Davis, and welcome to the 5th installment of the Northern Virginia Black Chamber of Commerce and the Alliance Technology Consortium 2021 Technology Series. Of course, today we're talking about cloud technology. As a member of the Chamber of Commerce and the ATC, CDP and Associates LLC is a technology management, operational insertion, integration, and commercialization innovation company. Yeah, we love our technology and is proud to co-host this small business series. As CDP's managing director, today's topic is actually a summation of some of our previous discussions. You know, cloud technology, whether public, private, or hybrid, is a relatively new technology that the federal as well as state and local governments are eagerly pursuing or investing in. In fact, cybersecurity and resilience, that is backups and disaster recovery discussions, are also part of the cloud technology discussion. And as I often say, it's all about the data. Cloud technology is at the heart of data management, data analytics, and data storage. And finally, the real reason why we felt that this was important to have this topic, small businesses, particularly minority-owned small businesses, this is an opportunity to compete better and play on a much level playing field with some of your larger competitors. So today, sit back, listen, ask questions, and hopefully you will find a path and a way with some of the companies and some of the individuals here that you can install your own cloud in your company. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Barry Duvall, President of the Virginia State Chamber of Commerce. Thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of this program and to bring you a greeting on behalf of the 26,000 members of the Virginia Chamber of Commerce. You know, it's an exciting time to be in business in the Commonwealth as we come out of the pandemic and begin to recognize that technology is going to help us transcend into a new economy. The fastest growing sector of our economy is the knowledge-based economy. So I'm pleased to see your panel focusing on technology and specifically technology's impact on minority businesses. Virginia has been recognized as a leader in cybersecurity and a leader in technology across the United States. You may not know, but over 50% of the world's internet traffic passes through Virginia every day. We are a hub for technology centers and data centers, and we are a hub for cybersecurity and technology workers. I'm really pleased that the Virginia Chamber can partner with the organization sponsoring this event in order to be a part of this program. I want you to know that we are supporting a couple of initiatives that we think will help minority businesses grow and prosper. The first is money for grants to help businesses start up. We think this is an important part and should be provided in a way that will be constructive for businesses across the Commonwealth of Virginia, including our minority communities where access to capital has not always been easy. I also want to say that we think mentorship programs are important. And I want to compliment the Virginia businesses that are coming alongside small businesses throughout the Commonwealth to assist them in growing their business. I also want to recognize the organizations like the Northern Virginia Black Chamber of Commerce that we've been partnering with to advance their mission, as well as help them reach communities across the Northern Virginia area. And I also want to thank the Alliance Technology Consortium for participating in today's program as well. So in closing, thank you for allowing me to speak for a few minutes in your program. I hope that you find it constructive, thought-provoking, and it helps you create a brighter future for you and your business as you grow in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Have a great panel discussion.
Great. Thank you to our sponsors today, the Alliance Technology Consortium, the Virginia Chamber of Commerce Foundation, CDP and Associates, and Fairfax County Economic Development Authority for supporting the Chamber in our initiatives to advance businesses in Northern Virginia.
Thank you. And as we said, today we have three great gentlemen with us to help us with our discussion around cloud architecture. First off, we have Mark Cannady. He's the founder CEO of the Jelani Networks company. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning. How's everybody doing?
Great. Thanks for being here. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Mark.
My company is the Jelani Networks company, and I've been involved in technology now for about 35 years, coming out of a 20-year career with Lockheed Martin as doing systems integration work, basically DevOps work. At the time, we called it information assurance, but it is now cybersecurity, and also doing cloud technology since at the end of my career with Lockheed Martin for the last, when I founded my company in 2013. So I'm always excited to come on board and to talk about technology, particularly cybersecurity and cloud architecting. And then of course, the long history I have dealing with systems integration work, DevOps work. So always a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to having an opportunity to speak a little bit about this and add what I can to the conversation and meet some good folks over your panelists, with your panelists and with your audience. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Next up, we have Mr. Lynwood Owens. He's the president and CEO of LBO Technology. Thank you for joining us again, Lynn. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. Good morning, everyone. As Caprice said, my name is Lynwood Owens, President and CEO of LBO Technology. We are a professional services and IT organization headquartered in Leesburg, Virginia. We support right now 9 federal government agencies providing IT support, DevOps, cloud computing, and cybersecurity as well. We are SBA certified Hub Zone as well as 8A small business, and we're also a proud member of the ATC. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us again. And finally, but not least, we have Mr. Mourad Aissa. He's the CTO of Juniper Cybersecurity. Thanks so much for being with us, Mourad.
Sure, and good morning. Hello, I'm Mourad Oulid-Aissa. Thanks to the Northern Virginia Black Chamber of Commerce and Alliance Technology Consortium for hosting this event today. I'm currently Chief Technology Officer for Jupiter CybSec and also Enzo Technical Security Services. Both companies are small enterprises and both are minority-owned and veteran-owned enterprises. Jupiter CybSec focuses on cybersecurity services, and Enzo TSS focuses on physical and technical security services. In parallel with these roles in industry, I'm also chair of the Information Systems and Technology Department with South University. South University has 10 ground campuses, mostly in the Southeast region, including 2 campuses in Virginia, in Richmond and Virginia Beach, and 1 online campus as well. So I'm excited to be part of this panel, and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for being here. So as you can see, we have 3 great informed professionals to talk about what is the cloud. So I would like, Mark, if you could start us off. What is the cloud? You're a little bit muted.
Here. Okay, there we go. Can you hear me now? I love this. I am an evangelist for talking about cloud technology and talking about cybersecurity. Always a pleasure. And I just like to keep it real basic and real plain when we talk about the cloud. Really, the cloud is the ability for small businesses and for individuals to be able to access scalable and the infrastructure as a service and software as a service capability so that you can provide either those services or the capability that those services provide to any customer, or either to enhance your internal operations for what you're delivering. The cloud is something that everyone ought to be involved with, because if you're a small business in this area, you're either going to be accessing those services, as I said, for your business, or you're going to be trying to provide those services to your customers here in this area and around the world, actually. So you can actually do either one. So when we talk about cloud services, basically the initial thing we talk about is really just having your ability to have this infrastructure as a service and the ability to have that capability and the cybersecurity piece and security piece that comes with it from cloud service providers. You don't have to be the one who actually has the management of that architecture, that underlying infrastructure. Also, it gives you the ability to have access to software as a service, which is software which resides in the cloud. So that allows you to be able to provide a number of different sort of applications and services internally and for customers or products that you have out there that you're providing for yourself. Now, there's other variations of this that has a platform as a service, not a real big difference between that and other ones, but what you need to understand is that this is where technology resides. This is where services for the private sector and the federal sector resides. In understanding cloud computing, or either understanding cloud architecture and those sort of things, is more or less being provided by cloud service providers and being provided by cloud service offerings if you look into the Department of Defense and other areas. So I'm not going to get a whole lot into that, but I will tell you that there's plenty of cloud service providers that are out there that you can look at, from Amazon to Microsoft to IBM. There's other software as a service from Salesforce, you name it. Every company is operating there now. So having the ability to understand what it does and how it can create revenue for your company and services for your customers is what's key. And I guess later we're going to talk a little more specifically on the technology and the underlying technology, the underlying capability for folks who are actually doing things in the cloud, providing that service. But for most people, they're really using the services of the cloud to do what it is that they do for their mission, and also supporting government and commercial entities in the cloud. So understanding the basics of how to access it, keep your customers and your company safe with the underlying cybersecurity piece is really what's important. And then you do access what you do need to know from subject matter experts who can give you more specifics in the technology. Happy to take any questions on that.
Great. We will ask some more questions about that, trust. Mourad, tell me, if you could, what would be the difference in your traditional architecture versus cloud architecture?
So first, I mean, the notion of computing in a cloud, or simply the cloud, really traces back to a concept of referred to as utility computing, which was introduced by a computer scientist in 1961. His name was John McCarty, and he was from Stanford University. And he talked at the time of the notion of computing as a public utility, just like the telephone system is a public utility. But a more precise definition, as you can see on the screen, is that cloud computing is a specialized form of distributed computing. And that means that the computing resources can be accessed remotely from multiple locations. And that introduces utilization models for remotely provisioning scalable and measured resources. And what this means, remote provisioning means that you can operate, administer, and maintain the computing resources, the IT resources remotely. Scalable means that you can grow or decrease the number of resources to accommodate your particular needs. Of course, flexibly and on demand. And the notion of measured resources simply means that you can track the usage of your resources so you can bill or be billed accordingly. You'll come across in cloud technology with terms such as cloud provider and cloud consumer. So the party that provides cloud-based IT resources is called a cloud provider, and the party that uses cloud-based IT resources is called a cloud consumer. And by the way, your enterprise can be a cloud consumer from a cloud provider of wholesale cloud services, but at the same time could also be reselling cloud services and act as a cloud provider yourself. When we refer to cloud-based computing resources or cloud-based IT resources, we mean virtual IT-related elements. And that means that, so network elements such as servers, storage, software applications, services that are software-based. So IT resources that are simulated through software. So this is a key feature of the cloud. So the notion of the cloud originated with the internet. So you will find that all public clouds are accessed through the internet, although some private clouds do not go through the internet at all. So that is the case with specialized cloud delivery services from major telecommunication carriers. And finally, if you're wondering why we use the term cloud, the reason is simply that before the notion of cloud computing was introduced, the cloud symbol was commonly used in technical diagrams by systems architects to represent a shared network or a distributed architecture in their specification documents.
Thank you, very informative. Lynwood, anything you can add to us as far as cloud computing and what that means in terms of architecture?
Thanks, Caprice. My fellow panelists did a great job of explaining the technology side, and from a business standpoint, I look more as what are the benefits of the cloud from a small business perspective. You're basically, it's taking your computing, your technology, and using the internet to store and manage your data on remote servers. The benefits of the cloud are reducing your IT costs. Gone are the days of having the server room and stacking servers and those sort of things in your facility. Moving to the cloud, everything is moved to the internet. It's also scalable. There's multiple clouds. There's a private cloud, there's a public cloud, there's a hybrid cloud. So depending on your business, the cloud allows you to be flexible in that regard. Business continuity, it's reliable, much more reliable than the old server farm approach. It allows for collaboration, and it also allows for flexibility of work practices. And it also allows for very simplistic automated updates. Security updates and patches are done much more effectively by utilizing the cloud.
Thank you so much.
So I'm going to pose this question to Lynwood first. How are small businesses, especially minority-owned small businesses, impacted by the cloud?
Well, the biggest impact for small businesses, obviously most minority-owned small businesses have less than 50 employees. So there is a cost to cloud and migrating to the cloud. So you have to think about your hardware and software costs, your server, your licensing, your warranties, your consumption, your storage capacity. These are all things you need to factor in regards to moving to the cloud. Calculating the total cost of ownership of the cloud. the operating costs, the talent, the labor, the administrative requirements, as far as maintaining, hiring, or retaining your current IT department. If you don't have an IT department, then you have to look at outsourcing and looking at bringing on consultants to help you in that area. The indirect cost of potential downtime, loss of productivity. If the IT infrastructure were to go down to moving to the cloud, that's obviously something you need to factor in. Also, the execution of the cost involving moving your IT operations and data and software to the cloud, the application integration, the testing, the third-party consulting fees, as I mentioned, if you don't have an IT person or an IT staff, which most small businesses probably do not have. Also, the post-migration costs, the monthly infrastructure, the fees, the maintenance, the improvements, the new environment, the continued integration, the app testing, training, security, and compliance. Now, those are all factors that you have to look into in regards to moving to the cloud. Thanks.
Mourad, would you like to?
Sure, of course. So I like to think in terms of three major business drivers, considering what the enterprises need, in particular small businesses that cannot afford to support and maintain large infrastructures on premise, meaning that they would deploy IT infrastructures at their locations. And these are capacity planning, cost reduction, and organizational agility. So let me expand on each of these drivers. Capacity means the maximum amount of work that an IT resource is capable of delivering in a given period of time. So capacity planning is the process of determining and fulfilling future demands of an organization's IT resources. So that includes products and services. And so to understand how the cloud offers a great advantage in terms of capacity planning, it helps to go over the technologies that enable this feature. And there are three important technologies, and these are clustering, grid computing, and virtualization. So it just helps to understand a little bit, the technology behind this notion of cloud, the ability to scale resources. So clustering means that a group of IT resources work transparently as a single system. And a key benefit of that is increased reliability. So for example, think of a cluster of servers, computers versus a standalone server. Grid computing means that IT resources are organized into logical pools. So for example, the cloud deals with pools of processing resources, pools of storage that it can draw from on demand to accommodate the usage needs of an organization. And virtualization, so that's a key feature, and that means that hardware requirements are simulated by software. So as a cloud consumer, if you used a cloud delivery model referred to as infrastructure as a service that we mentioned earlier, you would see your computing resources transparently as if they were physical resources, where in fact they are implemented in software, drawing from a pool of physical IT resources within the cloud. So now using these technologies, the cloud gives you the ability as a small enterprise to handle your increased or decreased usage demands in your business. So you can scale out or scale in. So these are terms we use in cloud computing. That means allocating or releasing of IT resources of the same type, or scaling up and scaling down. And this means replacing IT resources with more or less powerful IT resources. So by leveraging these technologies, clustering, grid computing and virtualization, a cloud can very easily allocate IT resources to your enterprise as a cloud consumer on demand or via your direct cloud administration interface. The next item that I wanted to discuss is cost reduction. We touched on that as well. And that this is achieved because the cloud relieves your enterprise of the burden of operating and maintaining an infrastructure on-premise. So the overhead of supporting your own IT infrastructure that includes supporting technical personnel to operate and maintain the IT environment, managing software upgrades and patches, deploying security and access controls, adding administrative staff. So overall, all these contribute to added operating and capital expenses for your enterprise. And instead, with the cloud, you pay as you go for your IT resources. And very briefly, the third driver, organizational agility, is how your enterprise can respond to change. So with the cloud, you can easily respond to business changes by scaling your IT resources beyond the scope of your initial plans.
Great, thank you for that. Mark, I would love for you to follow up on that question, but I also have an additional question for you. With a lot of small businesses, especially micro businesses who are looking to switch over to cloud computing, what is cloud's impact on security, especially at a day and age where we have a lot of things going through the internet, from California to Loudoun County, which is now becoming one of the largest zones for information. Can you kind of talk a little bit about that?
Sure, love to talk about that, Sheila. Happy to get back on stage and talk a little about this. Listen, with cloud computing, what's always fantastic about cloud computing is if you're a small business, particularly a minority-owned, African-American, Latino, Asian-owned, whatever you're coming from, veteran-owned, woman-owned business, it doesn't matter. You can either have been in the business for a very long time, or you could be just getting into the business. What cloud computing allows is you to basically access the same capability and services as a major organization, because when you look at the underpinning of the cybersecurity services that are being provided by the cloud service provider, which in this case would be an Amazon or be an Azure or an IBM, what have you, Google, you now have the protections that flow down to you, which I won't get into all the technical pieces, security controls that are required to protect the assets. And your assets are really in the cloud. And since they're in the cloud, that gives you a layer of protections. You have the continuity of business. If there's some sort of disaster that happens or whatever, you don't lose all your data, because your data is basically what you have that makes up your company, and that's saving information and protecting it. So as a minority-owned firm, as Mourad talked about earlier, a lot of those services, when they were basically in your system or in servers that you have on a rack, then all of a sudden you've got to provide all the cybersecurity services. You have to provide the protections. You have to have the backup to those systems if something should go down. Well, that's not the case with cloud computing. So as a small business, you basically are impacted in a positive way using cloud services from a cloud service provider. The same thing, whether it's infrastructure as a service from an Amazon, or either it's software as a service from whomever the software company is, Salesforce or what have you, Microsoft, it doesn't matter. That allows you to continue to provide the services to your company, that allows you to provide services to your customers, and allows you to look at your requirements as a small business and say, what do I want to do? Well, I'm in business. And if I'm in business, I'm here to make money. How am I able to increase the revenue of my company and not be negatively impacted by it, by taking what I don't need to do myself and using subject matter experts in this underlying cybersecurity piece of that to allow me to provide the services to that federal customer, to the commercial customer. If we just take a small moment to talk about having that, for a lot of us are here in Northern Virginia. This is a Northern Virginia Black Chamber of Commerce. they're government contractors. So there are a lot of government related requirements that you have to do because the government is the largest buyer of services and products in this entire country. So if you're in this area and you're trying to make money as your small business, you had better be looking at that customer and seeing how you can make money. And one of the things, if you're a federal customer in the Department of Defense and the DoD area, you have what's known as secure cloud computing architecture. Within DoD, DISA provides those services, and there's companies out there that already have things that protects personally identifiable information or personal health information. Those are known as an impact level 4 cybersecurity, cloud service offerings, and allows that data to be protected and allows you to say, hey, I want to go after this contract. I need a teaming partner that's going to be that's going to help me handle an impact level 4 data. So if I know I'm going to have personally identifiable information, I know I have PHI data, it's a requirement for this government customer for me to be able to provide this service to them, you can go out and get a partner and be able to provide that same sort of capability that the government requires. Now that's also for DoD agencies, but it's also for commercial agencies, because the underlying requirement for all that is risk management framework. That's RMF, which basically says every government system, commercial or either or government, both have to have what's known as RMF, so they have an ATO, an authority to operate. This is a practice which is the same in the commercial arena as it is in the federal arena, but there are a few more things that DoD requires you to do. In DoD, it's DISA. In the civilian agencies, you're talking about going through FedRAMP. FedRAMP puts all the same requirements out there for IL2, which is impact level 2 for public facing capability. So if you're dealing with the public and you have a cloud service provider that's doing that, providing that services for you, and you're the company that's managing that provider and managing whatever that customer's mission is and providing those services to that customer, you're able to go out and get that cloud service provider for software as a service or either for infrastructure as a service, and then working with that government customer, being able to deliver whatever it is they're trying to provide. So it's important from a cybersecurity perspective that you have all these things already in place that the federal customer requires, but when you pivot over to the commercial arena, you're not dealing with a government customer. From a cybersecurity perspective, you still need to have that same risk management framework capability so that you know that your customer data and your data that you're providing, whether it's for a customer or for your own company, is safe and secure. All the security controls are in place. All the vulnerability compliances and things that you have to do to keep your data protected, you've got in place. And you've also got those cloud service providers that do that in the public or the commercial arena as well. And the last thing I want to say, I always go back to revenue. When you are a small business, you want to be able, obviously, to grow. In order to grow, you need to be able to have scalable capability that is deliverable. And the way it's deliverable is that you have the same capabilities with these cloud service providers as any other organization, allowing you to provide your services in a way that protects whatever product that you have out there or service and allows you to have global reach.
Great, thank you. I think that leads into our final question. And if you don't mind, Mark, I'm gonna have you to start that question is, how or what are the top 3 actions that my company should be taking to prepare for cloud migration, prepping for architectural changes? Can you guys talk a little bit about that for me?
Well, same thing. I'll lead out with more of that, Sheila. Thank you for the question. It's a great question. When you're trying to prep in order to do this, when you go to, you're not going to be the one to actually provide these services. What you need to understand is your requirements. What is it that I'm going to go and do? And that's going to drive what sort of software as a service that you are needing internally, as well as for offering your service or product, and also the infrastructure as a service, which is offered by a few different companies. not a whole lot of difference between AWS and Amazon Web Services, or you're talking Microsoft Azure or either IBM or Google. The basic infrastructure as a service capability is the same. However, there are some different tweaks that these various different cloud service providers offer from an IaaS or infrastructure, IaaS or IaaS as they call it, infrastructure as a service, which may be unique and that may determine which way you want to go. But more importantly is once you know what your requirements are and what you want to go out and do, what you're going to do at that point is make sure that you go make the cloud service provider that you select for SaaS, software as a service, or infrastructure as a service that matches those requirements, which really isn't that much differences from the basic capabilities that an IaaS or software as a service company offers. It's basically what it is that the software does, and from an infrastructure as a service, it's basically having access to scalable infrastructure. So requirements are important first to get that. Once you have your requirements straight, you probably want to talk to one of the CSPs. There's plenty of subject matter experts who can help you verify and vet what you're hearing from the cloud service provider helps your company. I always go back to the bottom line. Can I deliver the capability that I need to deliver as a in my requirements to the customers that I'm supporting? And the bottom line, can I deliver it in a way how I'm also driving revenue for my company so I can continue to grow and take advantage of this scalability while having the underlying security pieces, because we've all heard about how certain organizations have been breached, you lose data, you have downtime, all those sorts of things are important. And then they affect your data that you're the data that you're able to keep safe, and they affect obviously your income if in fact they go down. Even large companies like Facebook, you know, they went down the other day for 8 hours. However, the underlying capability that you want to be able to really have is the ability to make sure that you have good companies in place as a cloud service provider that are giving you that scalability and reach. You want to have the right software as a service in place so you're delivering on the requirements that you need to do via the cloud. And thirdly, you want to make sure that the requirements are there being met so that you are getting the revenue that your company is trying to do by offering a service or product to the federal workplace or either the commercial workplace. That's really what's important for you to understand with cloud computing or infrastructure as a service or software as a service. More importantly, I'll just end it with this one last thing, is that your company needs to be able to make revenue to stay in business. So get a subject matter expert. There's plenty of them here on this panel, plenty of folks you can hire or either bring into your company that can advise you as you select these services. And more importantly, get out there and go do it. Getting out there and doing it is what's really important, because that's where you're actually going to get things done. And you have the expertise that you can access in order to have a good presence in this arena.
Thank you so much. Lynwood, I would ask you the same question. What are the top 3 actions that I would need to take to prep my company for cloud migration?
Well, there are 3, thank you, Caprice. There are 3 stages of cloud migration. Stage 1 is the analysis and the technical business needs. And as Mark alluded to, that is big time in the requirements phase. Stage 2 is a risk analysis and mitigation of the project scope. Depending on how large your business is, your processes, your number of employees, your number of users you support, that factors into your project scope and the scalability of the cloud migration. Stage 3 is the managed service operation. That basically gets you prepared to move to the cloud. And in regards to that move, the biggest preparation you have to make is you have to make sure that you have gathered all the information about cloud, the pros and the cons, the risk, and that you have a risk mitigation strategy put in place. So when you are ready to make that move, you need to make sure you have a reliable backup of your data so that if something does go wrong in your migration, you have a solid backup that you can use to reinstall to the previous version of the server and restore that data if you do have some issues and your migration is not successful. The steps you need to take also are your level of migration. Are you going totally to a private cloud or a public cloud or a hybrid cloud? Depending on your customer, if your customer is the DoD, as Mark alluded to, or in the IT community, you've got to decide what's best for my business. Maybe a hybrid cloud is better to allow you to access maybe some routine data, maybe data within HR or something that's readily accessed. Maybe that's in a public cloud or a hybrid cloud. And then you put in your security, your FSO type duties, and those things are put into a private cloud, a more secure cloud. Also, you have to establish your KPIs as well as your performance baselines. Then you have to create your data migration plan before you begin to start to migrate to the cloud. So those are all factors you have to consider when you do decide to move to the cloud. And hopefully you have good security hygiene now. As Mark alluded to, our adversaries are attacking a lot of small businesses. A lot of small businesses are being hacked, as well as large businesses. So hopefully you have a good hygiene practice in terms of your security and prepare for your cloud migration move. Thanks.
Thank you. Mourad, I would ask you the same question. What can you advise our listeners as far as the top 3 actions they'll need to consider?
Sure, and of course, I would reiterate what Mark and Lynwood said very well. So the first thing for your enterprise, as you are considering using cloud technology and cloud services, is assess your business needs and determine the implications in terms of your requirements for IT resources, and then consider alternative technology solutions. So now, obviously, if you have the subject matter expertise to do this analysis on your own, that's great. If not, of course, you may consider recruiting services of one of the companies we represent to help you with that initial analysis. Now, you also need to understand that using the cloud is not an all or nothing proposition. So it's very possible that the right solution for you may be a hybrid solution where you would support some of your IT needs yourself from one of your locations and resort to using the cloud for some other IT needs. And then again, you may go with one or more cloud providers. So you don't need to be limited to one cloud provider. Then you need to understand the different cloud options and the different levels of subject matter expertise that you would need to administer and operate your solutions. So the 3 main cloud delivery models, and we touched on that already earlier, that represent prepackaged IT resources that are offered by a cloud provider. These are the infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. So infrastructure as a service would include IT resources like servers, so computing systems, computers that you would see as commercial servers with operating systems and basic software utilities, storage systems, networking and communication systems. So these are examples. You would use this model if you require a high level of control over your cloud-based environment. Now, platform as a service would include IT resources like a data management platform, a web server platform, an application development platform, or even a search engine. So for both infrastructure as a service and platform as a service, the cloud provider typically publishes APIs. So these are application programming interfaces. And these APIs are for the actual operation of your infrastructure as a service or platform as a service IT resources, but also for connectivity and control. So which means to automatically discover, assess, monitor, and control your cloud environments. So as a cloud consumer, you could consider this cloud delivery model if you wanted to deploy your own cloud services, and I'm referring to platform as a service, to be made available to your customers. As an example, there's one example of an application. And then software as a service. So this is the highest level. And examples under this cloud delivery model include services like Salesforce.com, right? Microsoft Office 365, Google Apps, Dropbox. So these are all examples of software as a service. Now, once you determine your requirements and you arrive at a solid plan for your IT resources based on the cloud delivery model that will be best suited to meet your requirements, then you will need to consider 3 factors before arriving at a specific solution. So, and these are security, operational governance, and portability. So the security consideration is that you will need to review the service level agreements with the cloud provider to make sure that you are comfortable with the security measures that are provided. Now the responsibility over data security becomes shared, right, between you as a cloud consumer and the cloud provider. So that means that you will need to expand your trust boundary, what we refer to as trust boundary. That means the of the cloud. That means the set of IT resources and controls that protect the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of your critical assets. And typically that's your data, the critical data that you own and that you need to operate your business. The operational governance control consideration. So that means that you need to consider how the cloud provider operates the cloud, including the external connections for communication between the cloud and your enterprise. So you will need to be comfortable with the performance guarantees that are documented in the published service level agreements. And finally, the portability consideration. And that means that because of lack of established industry standards in the cloud industry, public clouds are commonly proprietary. So when making a decision to go with a cloud-based solution with a cloud provider, you really need to exercise due diligence, because you need to keep in mind that it can be challenging to move from one cloud provider to another.
Great, thank you. Okay, we have about 12 minutes left. Lynwood, do you want to offer any additional information to this? Or?
Well, I would just say to small businesses and minority-owned businesses, you know, it's as Mark said, it's all about revenue. You know, you have to really do a self-assessment of your business. If you're working in the commercial space and you're practicing good security hygiene, and you're satisfying your customers, then you may not need to go to the farm. The server farm, the traditional server farm may be fine for you. But if you're a small business wanting to serve the federal government or this local government, particularly the DoD or the Intel space, then I think you really need to seriously consider moving to the cloud. And in that regard, we did a series last week about the cyber maturity certification. And that's something you have to look into as well. That goes hand in hand with the cybersecurity. So as a business, you need to really look at what your objective is. You know, are you fine with what you're doing now, or do you want to expand your business or promote your business into the federal space? And if you do, I think you need to take the cloud computing and cybersecurity very seriously, and make that business decision for yourself.
Thank you. At this time, we have a poll. If you guys could take about a minute, about 30 seconds to a minute to complete it, we'll go through some of the answers and have a discussion. Can we have results of the poll? Excellent. Caprice, do you want to do the first one?
Sure. Who in your business is responsible for your enterprise architecture? So we have about 2/3 so that there's an internal resource. About 22% says that you're outsourcing, and about 11% of our said that they do not have anyone responsible for their architecture. So guys, do you have any suggestions for our members in terms of gaining a resource, or suggestions around should they have a resource? I think the answer is yes, but is there a preference, or is there a recommendation, internal versus outsourced? Lynwood, Mark, do you guys have a opinion?
Could you repeat the question, please?
Do you have a recommendation for whether or not businesses should have an internal resource or someone outsourced, or just as long as they have someone responsible for their architecture?
Well, would you like to go first on that, Sheila? Or
You can answer, Mark.
okay, so I really think it depends upon what it is that you're delivering. If you're talking internal operations and architecture for just what your company needs, you probably can go with either, depending upon your requirements and what you need. But most small businesses in their internal operations are buying those services, whether it's back office services from the standard folks who are out there like Microsoft, or other people just for their underlying everyday office operations that they need to do. But if you're providing a particular service and you're doing a systems engineering service or a cloud architecting service for a customer, then you definitely, if you don't, usually people like that, you don't have sitting around as a small business if you're not billing them out or they're not working a specific project, not unless it's the small business owner themselves. You're not going to have them on your payroll if they're not doing something. So I would think in most cases, you are going to do that based upon the opportunity that's in front of you and the opportunity that you've already secured to allow enterprise architecture to happen. Plus that interface that you have with that cloud service provider, they're going to have people who are going to provide you with the information, as we've said before, that you need for the sort of service or that you're delivering, or for a particular product that you may be selling. So it depends. It drives back to your requirements, and those underlying requirements, obviously successfully met, are going to drive the revenue for your company. It sounds like I'm sitting on both sides of the fence, but I'm really not. But I don't want you spending money you don't need to spend if you don't have the revenue that's going to cover it. So I would say it really depends on what that requirement that's in front of you is, whether or not you need to have somebody internal that it's going to be responsible for doing enterprise architecture. And also it's going to depend on the expertise of your company. Give you, for example, I know we only had a couple of minutes left here. For example,
actually, Mark, we do have the other two questions we want to go through, and we also want the opportunity for other panelists to chime in.
Go ahead.
And we have about 7 minutes left. So Lynwood, do you want to follow up with your answer for question 1?
Yeah, I would say to the business that, most small businesses and minority-owned small businesses don't have that, full-time IT person or that IT group. I would say to you to look at, do you have a mentor company? Do you have a small business that you work with? For my company, what I'm doing is we're sharing a resource. He's a resource that's doing this for another company, and we're sharing the resource. So therefore, we're sharing that cost. So it's not such a huge burden on the one company. So, but in terms of outsourcing, that's going to be obviously a pretty significant cost compared to if you do have a part-time talent or in-house talent. So again, as a small business, you have to kind of weigh those situations and determine which one is best for you.
Thank you. Mourad?
Yeah, I may be biased a little bit in my response, being a chief technology officer in two companies, small enterprises, but it really would depend on the nature of your enterprise, if it's technology oriented or not at all. I mean, providing commercial services or some other services, not necessarily focusing on delivering technology, right? But if there is a technology component to your products or services, then I would think it would make sense to have at least one person who can oversee kind of the technology decisions in-house.
Great, thank you. So question number 2 was, do you currently have data information stored in a cloud? And 100% of us say yes. So that's a good thing. So just, again, going back to the security, make sure that your information is secure. And number 3, is your business preparing to move to the cloud? Have you identified a vendor to assist your business in your migration to cloud architecture? And percentage of the people say yes. So that's good. So everybody's taking the proper measures to do what's needed to do for the next economy, the next gen economy. So I just want to take today to, again, just thank everybody. Thank you, Caprice, Mark, Lynwood, and Mourad for being on the call and sharing your expertise. We really appreciate your time and talent. And we will look forward to seeing everybody next week. We are going to go back to our other series, their 3rd series that we missed. So again, thank everybody for watching, and have a great day, and happy Cybersecurity Month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Have a good one.
All right, thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.